My name is Princess Priscilla Anyiam. I am the host of From Africa with Love, but today I'm doing a special interview with Mr. Tony Nnadi, a very selfless man that used to be a lawyer, worked for the oil and gas industries until you discovered a particular letter that led you to change your path so that you can see about the possibility of correcting wrongs that were done so many years ago. Anyway, without further ado, sir, I would like for you to introduce yourself. Who is Mr. Tony Nnadi?
Yes, like you said, the Tony Nnadi is, a man that set out early in life to be a military pilot.
I remember that too.
Somewhere down the road, I ended up at the Faculty of Law at the University of Nigeria, studying law with all the physics and chemistries and geographies of this world. And then went on to, at the time, graduated, had my beat in the law, going to court and doing all kinds of things. But I ended up in the oil industry. And it was because of being in the oil industry that I came face to face with the documents by which Shell and Mobil and Ajib and all were operating. And it became clear to me that there was an unfinished business. We needed to get to the root of who owns the land. And that was what led to my looking out for, I had to search around for, first digging into the archives to find out what else we could discover. And it was because of that digging around the archive that we got into what the British did that led to 1914. And we traced everything from that point to where we began to have the kind of constitutions that came. And we discovered in all those research that it was a matter of the kind of thing that became a apartheid constitution for South Africa was what those who put Nigeria together, had in mind. And that's so we decided to rally all of those who may want to get into the task of reversing our situation. And that's how it became that body, that suggestion, that proposition began to gather followership. And we went on from one name to the other because it had to happen in so many stages. And so Tony Nnadi is the Secretary General of an organization called the Lower Niger Congress, which became the platform from which the Eastern Nigerian portion of this problem had to be tackled. Of course, we reached out to other people who were also in the problem because the Yoruba were not free of the problem. The Middle Belt, you can see they're being killed, they're not free of the problem. And so the Lower Niger Congress, the LNC, had to reach out to organizations that were also, the individuals and organizations that were also trying to tackle similar, that same challenge in their own space. And that outreach became what we call the Movement for New Nigeria, which is actually movement for no Nigeria because we discovered that the Nigeria was designed to operate the way it's operating right now. And so we were the ones who had to make up our mind whether we wanted to continue in it in that way or to work out something else for ourselves. So Tony Nnadi is a yes, legal practitioner, is Secretary General of Lower Niger Congress, and also convener of the Movement for New Nigeria, which is the movement for no Nigeria. So that's where we are.
You said you guys had different names because I was looking at, it says Lower Niger Congress.
Yes.
Is there an Upper Niger Congress anywhere?
No, let me break it down a little further. Images. This is the map of Nigeria.
Correct.
broken into four. So this is the area we call the Lower Niger,
Mm-hmm.
the portion in brown. The blue is Yoruba. Then the purple is the middle belt, while the portion in green is the 12 states contiguous territory that adopted Sharia in year 2000. So Lower Niger Congress is concerned with what will happen to this brown portion, which is basically the aggregation of the Eastern region and Midwestern region of 1967 as ethnic nationalities. It was clear to us that we couldn't work with all the names Nigeria tried to call us over the years, and I'm looking for a better illustration of what we have in the place. You know, okay, here's a map. That brown portion is now as ethnic nationalities. What you see here is this is the Igbo space. The whole of the southeast of today will be in this part. And then the Midwest in that part. But you can see there are ethnic nationalities. We're not dealing with South-South or Southeast or Imo State or Abia State. The requirements of the UN for self-determination is that you must be an ethnic, you must be a nationality in your ancestral space. So this is the map that satisfies that requirement, such that we have the Igbo, the Ijo here, the Edo here, the Anang and Efik all here, and the Sekiri, Urobo, in this portion. And so this is that map of that Lower Niger, combining what was Eastern region and the Eastern region of the time and Midwestern region of the time, but as ethnic nationalities. So we put aside all of what the British and Nigeria did all this while. And so the other organizations that, the other names you're talking about would be the Yoruba organizations that were involved with self-determination, the OPCs of this world, and now you have all these kind of Odua self-determination groups. Now we have an umbrella body called the Yoruba World Congress that has aggregated all those their own Yoruba self-determination organizations under one umbrella. So while in the eastern half of southern Nigeria, this is our alliance map. While in the eastern half of southern Nigeria, you have the Lower Niger. On this part, you have the Yoruba, and then here. So there are organizations that are taking charge. The Lower Niger takes charge of the Lower Niger Congress is taking charge of Lower Niger area. All the Niger Delta agitation, all the Biafra agitation, all of those who are not satisfied with what Nigeria is doing in their space, in the eastern half of southern Nigeria, are the business of the Lower Niger Congress. Whereas in the Yoruba space, you also have several organizations that were doing all kinds of things, including OPC that went into armed agitation, that now have come under the umbrella of the organization we call the Yoruba World Congress. That's the coordinating organization on this side. Then the Middle Belt too, have their own. So the cooperation platform between these three is the one we call the Movement for New Nigeria, which is actually Movement for No Nigeria. Between the three of us, we insist that the constitution that has become the basis of Nigeria is no longer acceptable to all of us because it's imposed by one part. The part that have these 12 states that adopted Sharia are also the ones that impose this constitution that now make us slaves in our lands, just like South African apartheid constitution. You understand? So we came to where, as a majority of these three, we now say those who have adopted Sharia have seceded from the secular union we thought we were building. They have seceded from the union, the equal union we thought we were building. They have seceded from the federation we thought we were building, because all of what they have to do in their Sharia and their feudalism actually depart from the basis of being one country at independence. And so we interpreted their actions, since they are contiguous, the 12 states here are contiguous, and they adopted Sharia simultaneously in year 2000. So we interpreted their action to be one of self-determination, in secession from the secular union we thought we were building. And so the rest of us began to discuss what we do with our future. But the first urgent business was to take down the constitution that tie us with them. And that's where we are right now, after almost 21 years of working together, to come to this point where we'll take down this constitution and end this union, so that the three blocks can each go to referendum to decide what they want to do. Those who want to, if we want to continue in some fresh protocol like Germany and France and Portugal are doing European Union, that will be our business, because that was the kind of federation we discussed, our fathers discussed in Lancaster House in 1959. It was the military intervention in 1966 that truncated the constitutions that defined all of that. We agreed to be a federation. We agreed to be a secular union. We agreed to be a democracy. We agreed to be a union in which a human life will be held sacrosanct. We also agreed to be a union of equal citizenship. But with Sharia coming in, those who adopted Sharia owe it a duty of faith to kill the rest as infidels. That will never go away. So it's not a matter of sentiment here, because some of our people say, oh, why don't you go about it this way and that way? In the next 50 years, if we are still in this, if we remain here, that duty by the adherents of Sharia to kill the infidel will not go away. And so whatever else we do to solve all the other problems, they will continuously look for how to kill the rest of us. So that is one basis for which we do not want a union with them anymore. And secondly, they adopted the feudalist worldview. In the feudalist worldview, there's only the master and the slave. And so they tell us to our faces that they are born to rule us. And if we can no longer be a union of equal citizenship, and we now have to offer our lives in order to keep the union, the rest of us say we can no longer continue, especially when our signature had been superimposed on this instrument which we had nothing to do with. They were the ones who imposed this instrument by brigandage. The Constitution, which was the contract by which we went into being one union, was toppled. And by the time the Eastern region that was the first casualty of that toppling, began to insist on a revisitation. That was what they went to do in Aburi in 1967, to see whether we could go back to being a federation. And they agreed in Aburi and they came back. But these other people felt, look, what's anybody going to do to us if we say no? They threw away the agreement and began to kill people, and they killed 3.5 million people from here. The one that became Biafra. Biafra was more or less a response by Eastern region of the time to protect the citizens of that part who were being killed in all parts of the country. And so from that collapsed discussion about going back to being a federation, it became war. And 3.5 million people got killed all the way to 1970, from 66 when it became war. It was 67 or so. The commotion began in 66. It took a whole year of trying to solve it, because we're again at that threshold in which we have an opportunity to solve this problem in all of the propositions that have been made. But these same people who are now a minority, at the time they were doing what they were doing, they were able to rally the rest of the country. I think this illustrates it better. At the time we went to Aburi, it was almost an eastern region alone by itself. And even that eastern region had become compromised at some point when the 12 states were created, and it became East Central states that now had to do without the balance of Eastern region, like locking them into a smaller space. That's the white portion you see here. And then when it became war, it was an alliance of the rest of the country against this small place. So this Eastern region, the East Central state, became surrounded by the rest of the country 360 degrees. That was why they could impose a air, land, and sea blockade. And then Britain was out there, the Britain that is the organizers. And I forgot to mention that what we found out was Nigeria was basically a business joint venture between Britain and this caliphate here. And so Britain was there to guide them and manage. It was in fact Britain that left that war, left with the Fulani and the Hausa. They had no capacity to embark on the kind of thing that happened in that war. It was Britain in order to, right.
Mr. Nadi, excuse me.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Based on the fact that we want to learn or we learn from the past,
yes.
How are the groups within the LNC cooperating with divisions that you have put in place or the LNC has put in place? The other groups like the Yorubas, because as you've stated a little bit while ago, we need the Yorubas, our other groups to help us to be successful. So how is that moving along? Do you think?
I will report. Yes, I will. I'm happy to report that unlike what happened before.
So we don't lose millions and millions of lives. Yes.
Yes, those unlike what happened before, those alliance partners to the LNC have managed to bring their own people to embrace fully this proposition to take down this constitution and retrieve their sovereignties too. Because when you look back at Abiola that won an election and got killed, it was simply because the master could not rule over the servant could not rule over the house of his master. That was his only offense. And you saw when they charged Jonathan out of government house, it was again because they felt it was an abomination for a slave to rule over the house of his master. And so with all those things going on and the killings happening in the Middle Belt territories, you hear about it every day, Benue, Taraba, Plateau, and all of that. It wasn't difficult to get them to see that the solution to the problem was to truncate this union of death, this union of attrition, this union of backwardness. And so they're doing not just well. In fact, the Yoruba are like 3 steps ahead of everybody else. I'm sure you heard about Amotek. It came to where they had to, because they were being killed, and then you heard when they killed Fulani headsmen killed the daughter of the Yoruba leader, leader. So it was like, what can you guys do? And then Yoruba decided to get arms, because the constitution forbids any of the constituents, apart from federal government, any guns the federal government does not control becomes an offense in your hand if you are found with it. The governor cannot issue you gun to go and do vigilante or any kind of policing. And it became a situation where the Yoruba decided to travel outside the constitution in search of salvation for themselves, and they placed Amotekun. Today, if you enter into the Yoruba space uninvited, you are likely to be fired upon. And so they went on to, you saw when they went to the UN to present themselves as unrepresented people, that is to say, they are fed up with this union. You saw in the Middle Belt when Danjuma raised a lamp to the hearing of the whole world that what was going on in Nigeria was ethnic cleansing, in which the federal government that had been hijacked by the Fulani are actually in collusion with those who have come from all over the place to kill people and take over their assets. So they're doing very well. They're doing very well, and we are together in the next things we have in place. At the time we went to the US last year, you saw the videos of it. They were all there, because what has become attractive to the US is that this initiative has the entire country, on the table. Before our proposition, the US was scratching his head what to do with the Niger Delta agitation that was, debilitating the oil and gas operations of their Chevron and Mobil. They were scratching their heads what to do with the Biafra agitation. They are scratching their head with what to do with the Yoruba agitation that wanted regional autonomy, meaning a fundamental reconstruction of the union, and the Middle Belt in which killings were taking place, and then the Sharia place where everything is there. So what we did was to bring a comprehensive package of a plan that could take care of the entire space with one policy stroke. And it became easier for the US to search its bag of policies to see the one that will fit for solution there, because you remember that a war with the ISIS, and then suddenly ISIS turns up in the sub-region, in the West African sub-region, in direct relationship with Boko Haram, that has in its fold people who hold executive power in Nigeria.
Okay.
You know, Buhari was a known sympathizer and supporter of Boko Haram to the point where Boko Haram appointed him to be their spokesman when Jonathan called a meeting. And then in 2014, Boko Haram, you know, so in all of this, we're saying that all of this, all the other members of the alliance, you know, have enough reason to stay with the propositions of the alliance.
Okay, that's very good. And then my next question was, we saw the success that happened 2019 when you visited Washington. That's abroad, but there is a saying that say charity begins at home. So we've seen how the lower Niger Congress are rallying around. But what is the message from national, let's say from the president of Nigeria? How has he received this movement? Because I believe this is a movement to try and rectify what was done so many years ago. So, where does he stand on this issue?
Incidentally, at the time we had a 20-year plan, which was distilled in 1999.
Okay.
By the time we were putting together, you know, the plan to bring the public into that plan, suddenly these 12 states in February of 2000 simultaneously adopted Sharia. And we thought it was something that needed to be explained to them, that we couldn't bring Sharia into a secular union. And we decided to, before we begin to quarrel with anybody, because the constitution we're rejecting was already in place. And it has our signature as the authors of our damnation.
Who signed it? If it has our signature, who were that signed it?
Our signature was superimposed. It was a military decree. It was a General Absalom Abaka and his confederates at the Supreme Military, they called the Armed Forces Ruling Council of the time, that issued a decree number 24 of 1999, which by which they tagged a document that was not discussed with anybody as a Constitution of Nigeria. I have it right here, and it says the schedule to this Constitution that begins from this page, attached to this decree that is just one leaf. This decree is just one leaf, like this.
Okay.
And so that's how we came about this. Absalom Abaka that issued it. Here, can you see Absalom Abubakar?
Yes, I can see him.
Yes, that's all about how it came. But it tells a story in that decree, how step by step they came about the decree to live together as one indivisible entity, do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following. So it was actually a forgery to that extent that we were not privy to the document.
Informed. That's what it looks like.
Yes, there was no meeting whatsoever.
Okay.
And the story of how they came about their decree number 24 was actually told inside the document. It was printed in error along with the rest of the document. You understand? The instruction in the decree was that it should not be printed by the federal government printer. So they printed it in error, providing the proof to the whole world that because this was what they gave all the embassies. This was the
I remember reading that in school.
Have that in that decree showing that there was never a meeting of the people to come about the document, as claimed in the preamble that says we all agree. That means we the Jaw, we the Goni, we the Doma, we the they say we the people. But that's what it means, because some of our people don't. You have to explain to them what it means, that it is on account of our sovereignty that it was now claimed that we have submitted our sovereignty, that's our lands and ourselves, into the union to be called Nigeria. That's a lie. And that was what we had to, in all of what we wanted to do, we decided to take that lie to a place where it will be defeated. We went to court in 2007 to show that, because eventually they discovered that we were about to do that. They printed a second version of that constitution that tried to remove all those things that defeated that preamble. The proof that we didn't make that constitution, they made a second. Nigeria as today has two versions of that constitution.
Is that
in which
legal?
they're trying to pretend.
Is that legal?
Well, that's all. Whatever you do with a forgery, it's not at all. It's not at all. It's not. And it became a forgery, and that made our task lighter. That the title deed by which these invaders, these people who have seized our assets and our lands and our rights and our sovereignty, the title deed by which they are doing all of that has a signature as the makers. And we say, look, we can organize ourselves and bring down the document like every other forgery. Any document, in all the law I studied and I practiced, if a document turns out to be a forgery on the face of it, especially like this one that has the proof of what we are saying right on the face of the document, you don't even have to wait for a court pronouncement. Like somebody bringing a fake dollar bill to try to spend, and you look at it to say, oh, this is photocopy of dollar, it's not dollar. Correct. You don't need to go to get a court judgment for the consequences of that forgery to begin to hold. And so that's what we did.
Where do we stand right now in terms of the original constitution and the forgery constitution? Where do we stand as of this?
Where we stand at this moment is that we cannot go from this and say, oh, let's go back to the one that was there before. The union, like the memo and articles of association, the constitution is to the union what the memo and articles of association is to the company. You know, the memo is a different document from the article. The memo creates the company. Johnson, Jude, and Jacob come together to form an enterprise, submitting their assets and all kinds of things that become that enterprise, ABC Limited. That is what the memo does. The article is where the owners of the company are now discussing how they relate in the management of in the affairs of their company. And therefore, if you came to where you have not settled the matter of having a company in place, and you go write an article, the constitution that says we the people have solemnly resolved to live together, that's the memo. We the Ijo, we the Igbo, we the Ogoni, we the Idoma. That's the memo. Then you come down to do hereby make and give unto ourselves the constitution. That's the article. So there are two transactions. The angle from which we have come, Nigeria is no longer accepted. Nigeria has imposed since 1966 is no longer acceptable to us. We did everything for 50 years, going to 52 years, to get our compatriots who were doing things that frustrate the union into a discussion to say, we can't go this way. The more we tried, the more arrogant they became, the more reckless they became. And when it now came to killing us, having seized all our assets, our priority moved on. Our priority moved at Aburi. We were saying, let's fix it. Let's go back to being a federation. It will be better we fix it. But after 50 years, when in 2009, they began to say that they will make the country ungovernable if one of us became president, that was when Jonathan, as acting president, and doing the balance of Yar'Adua's tenure, was going to contest. They actually threatened that if we insist on having somebody from that path to be president, that it doesn't matter who, that they were going to make the country ungovernable. And you know what? The day Jonathan was declared the winner of the election of 2011, they began to kill people all over the place. They killed coppers in Bauchi, and then overran the police station there, overran the army base nearby, declared themselves Boko Haram. Democracy was no longer acceptable to them. The constitution must go in place of Sharia that they want. That was how Boko Haram announced itself. And it went on like a wildfire to the point where by 2014, they were already operating, with impunity. And you saw people, political leaders from that path, you know, like Buhari, who was a candidate in that election, coming out to tell the whole